Twitter. I've been using the platform for over 5 years now. I've found and followed a lot of great people from whom I've learned so much from. Yet, with good comes the bad. And for the past, I'll say 2 years or so, as I've become more socially aware and more secure of my identity as a black feminist, I've dealt with and bore witness to the harsh vitriolic backlash that myself and other black women deal with as a result of being feminists. And the sadder part of this is that it's mostly come from our own men. It seems like a good number of black men have no difficulty addressing and fighting against anti-black racism. But when it comes to patriarchy and sexist oppression within the black community, it's like these guys are stuck on stupid. They become black history revisionists who adamantly believe that there isn't nor ever were issues with sexism and misogyny via black patriarchy within our group, that black women have only dealt with sexism from white men, and that white people, more specifically white feminists, with help from the government, infiltrated the black community via introducing black women to feminism during the civil rights movement to cause discord within our group and destroy the traditional family, quote unquote, and to emasculate men. Never mind that the American suffrage movement, which would later grow into the feminist movement, exists only mainly because of black women. Because in the cotton fields there was no division of labor based on gender. Black women have always been feminists, like Sojourner Truth, a feminist and abolitionist, or Ida B. Wells Barnett. She was a feminist and an anti-lynching advocate, whose writings refuted the idea of all white women being chaste and virginal, that all black women lacked virtue, and that all black men were rapists. Angela Davis did this very same thing in her book, Women, Race, and Class. Never mind that sexism and perpetuations of white patriarchal norms within the Black Power movement and the civil rights movement is what led to the resurgence of black feminism, or that it was slavery, mass lynchings, post-Civil War, state-sanctioned segregation and poverty, the Vietnam War, and institutionalized racism led mass incarceration of black men and black women, I might add, that destroyed and continues to destroy black families to this day. While we're on the subject of families, I refuse to use the term traditional family because not all families are comprised of heterosexual parents, and the lack of a father or a mother doesn't reduce the value of a single mother or a single father, or most importantly, a child or children of single parents. This adaptation of racist critique in the composition of black families has been swallowed whole cloth and perpetuated ever since the Moynihan Report was released in 1965. That report basically blames black people, or more specifically black single working mothers, for the economic troubles black people have had post-emancipation and for the emasculation, quote unquote, of black men. It's basically blaming the victims of systemic institutionalized oppression of a people for their own victimization, and states that only when black families adopt the white patriarchal family model that black people's lives will improve, which is horseshit. For one, our ancestors' family compositions pre-colonization were matrilocal, meaning that a family would live with or near the wife's mother or family. Remember that that African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child? That was pretty apt, especially for black people post-emancipation, when black men would be taken from their families due to being lynched, or drafted to fight in wars like Vietnam, and after which, from returning, they were either physically ill from exposure to Agent Orange or mentally ill from post-traumatic stress disorder, and most likely were either alcoholics or heroin addicts, or when black men were left by black women because they were physically abusive. For another thing, adopting white cis-hetero patriarchy and positing that as a solution to the troubles of black people is nonsensical, because when in the history of fucking anything have black women not had to work? Don't worry, I'll wait. Secondly, remember that this patriarchal system was created by the same oppressor that enslaved our ancestors and saw them and us as less than human. That very same oppressor who has made us jump through their hoops to prove to them that we are worthy of their toxic and faulty definitions of manhood, womanhood, parenthood, family, and regards children as material value. Why would you ever want to adopt to a system created by the oppressor? And whether Hotep Twitter, Tariq Nasheed, or Dr. Boyce Watkins, aka Dr. Crown Royal Bags, wants to accept it or not, black women have always been feminists. We've been feminists before the word was ever coined. We've never been inferior to our men. We were out there in the fields with black men picking cotton and performing other forms of manual labor during slavery. And post-emancipation, black women have always worked because we've never been afforded the option of just staying at home and raising our children. Unless we were in the working class. And like even then, we still had to work because our wages were low. Whether we were agricultural workers, domestics, to white families, or nurses. Now, somewhere along the line, our ethnic group picked up the structures of patriarchy and sexist oppression from white people and white supremacy, and it seems like some black men and women are intent on perpetuating that shit, and I'm left to wonder why. How can you ever hope to be free of racist oppression while perpetuating sexist oppression? Can y'all not see how that poisons any movement for freedom? Is it because patriarchy gives black men a seat at the table just for being men? So you're just willing to settle for that while taking out your frustrations with racism on those who go through what you go through and asserting you're superior? Are some of you that weak in character and conviction that you would settle for any small slice of power at the expense of those you claim to love and respect so much and call queens? Black feminists aren't your enemy. White supremacy is your enemy. And if you let go of patriarchal concepts and treating black girls and women like shit, we can come together to fight against our common enemy, racism and white supremacy. But we can't even begin to fight for racial equality as long as black men continue to act as if their liberation and attainment of manhood must come at the expense of black women, whether they deem us to be on our backs or on our knees. Black feminism isn't white feminism in blackface. We don't need reminders of dealing with racism. Black women who were suffragettes knew it back then during the abolitionist movement that even though white suffragettes were against slavery, they still saw themselves superior to us as white people. And we have and continue to hold white feminists responsible for their actions. And this would be known if more black men and women actually knew more about history and knew more about black feminism and womanism.